There is a quiet secret hidden inside Japanese philosophy that can turn an ordinary person into someone who never stops learning. Not for a year, not for a phase of motivation, but for life. And here's the strange part. The moment most people believe they finally understand the world is the exact moment they stop growing. Think about this for a second. A 3-year-old child can learn more in 1 year than most adults learn in 10. A child learns languages, social rules, physical coordination, emotional signals, and thousands of words without a study plan, without discipline, without productivity systems. They simply absorb everything. Meanwhile, adults struggle to learn a single new skill. Why? For centuries, people believed it was because children have young brains. But modern neuroscience is starting to reveal a different truth. A truth Japanese Zen masters already understood 800 years ago. The difference isn't intelligence. The difference is mindset. Zen philosophy calls this mindset Shoshin, the beginner's mind. And when Shoshin is combined with 2 other powerful ideas, Shuheri, the natural cycle of mastery, and Do, the endless path of growth, something extraordinary happens. You unlock the ability to learn anything at any age. But there's a problem. Most people lose access to this ability long before they realize it. By their mid-20s, many adults unconsciously close their minds. They begin repeating phrases like, "I'm just not good at this. I'm too old to start now. I'm not the type of person who can learn that." And slowly, without noticing it, their brain stops expanding, not because it can't grow, because they have decided it won't. This is the story of a man who discovered that truth too late, and then discovered it wasn't actually too late at all. His name was Alexander. Alexander was 32 years old and had worked in a mechanic shop for nearly a decade. He was the kind of man society rarely notices. The kind who wakes up before sunrise, arrives at work by 7 in the morning, and doesn't leave until evening. The kind who works 12 hours with oil on his hands and exhaustion in his bones. He was honest, hardworking, reliable, but deep inside he carried a quiet frustration that grew heavier every year. Every day, customers came into the shop driving expensive cars. Lawyers, entrepreneurs, engineers, businessmen. Cars worth more than Alexander earned in several years. And every time he watched them leave, the same question whispered inside his mind. How did they get there? Are they really smarter than me? Or was I simply born on the wrong side of life? Alexander had dreams once. He wanted to study engineering so he could understand engines deeply. Not just repair them, but design them. He wanted to start his own workshop someday. He wanted to earn enough money so his family wouldn't live paycheck to paycheck. He wanted the strength and energy to play with his children without feeling exhausted after 10 minutes. But every time he considered starting something new, another voice appeared inside his head. A louder voice, a more convincing voice. You're already 32. You barely finished high school. How are you going to study engineering now? You don't have the ability. You don't have the time. You don't have the money. And after hearing those thoughts long enough, he began to believe them, because society had been repeating the same message for years. There is a window for learning. You learn when you're young. After 30, your brain is already formed. It's too late. So Alexander stopped trying. He woke up, went to work, came home exhausted, and repeated the same routine day after day. Work, home, bills, sleep, weekends spent recovering from fatigue rather than building a better future. Life had quietly become survival. Until one Saturday afternoon when everything changed. Alexander was lying on the sofa, scrolling through his phone during one of the rare quiet moments of the week. His wife Sarah was cleaning the house nearby. Then suddenly he heard a scream, "Alex, Alex, help me!" He jumped up and ran into the kitchen. Sarah was on the floor, clutching her arm in pain. She had slipped on the wet floor and fallen hard. Her face was pale, her breathing was shallow. "I think it's broken," she whispered. Alexander felt panic rising in his chest. He rushed to help her. He tried to lift her, to carry her to the car, but something happened that he would never forget. His arms trembled, his back tightened, and he couldn't lift her. 10 years of manual labor in the workshop. And yet in the moment his family needed him most, his body simply wasn't strong enough. He had never trained, never taken care of himself, never built real physical strength. So instead of carrying her, he had to slowly help her walk to the car, step by painful step. And while driving to the hospital, another thought began hammering inside his mind. How much is this going to cost? They were already living on the edge financially. There was never extra money. An emergency could destroy their budget completely. After hours of waiting, the doctor finally delivered the diagnosis. The arm wasn't broken, but the injury was serious. Treatment, immobilization, physical therapy. The bill came out to more than $1,000. Money Alexander simply didn't have. That night, after bringing Sarah home and helping her fall asleep, Alexander sat alone in the kitchen in complete darkness. And for the first time in years, he cried. Not because of the money, but because of what the situation revealed. He worked 12 hours a day and still couldn't protect his family financially. He worked constantly, yet his body failed when it mattered most. He had been surviving, not growing. That night he didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, asking himself the most honest question of his life. I need to change, but how? What Alexander didn't know yet was that the answer he was searching for had been discovered centuries earlier by Zen masters. And the moment he encountered that idea, everything he believed about learning would collapse. The following Monday, Alexander returned to the mechanic shop, but his mind was no longer on the engines in front of him. Every bolt he tightened, every oil change he completed, every customer he spoke to. His thoughts kept returning to the same moment, standing in the kitchen, failing to lift his own wife. That image wouldn't leave his mind. By lunchtime, he had already made a decision. His life had to change. Not someday, now. He wanted to study. He wanted to become stronger. He wanted to earn more money. He wanted to become the kind of man his family could rely on. There was only one problem. He had absolutely no idea where to begin. That night after work, he sat on the couch with his phone and began searching. How to make more money. How to start a business. How to study after 30. Within hours, the internet began doing what it does best. It flooded him with answers. Financial gurus promising $10,000 per month. Entrepreneurs claiming anyone could become rich in a year. Productivity experts offering magical morning routines. Alexander devoured everything. He watched videos late into the night. He bought online courses. He downloaded spreadsheets. He wrote notes in notebooks. The more he consumed, the more convinced he became that knowledge was the key. If he could just learn enough strategies, enough methods, enough systems, his life would finally change. So he kept buying. One course promised to teach financial investments. He completed every lesson, but it required money to invest. Money he didn't have. Another course promised online sales and digital income. He created accounts, listed products, even spent money on ads. 3 weeks later, he hadn't sold a single thing. Then came another course, and another, and another. Each one promised to be the breakthrough. Each one promised to be different. Each one promised results. But nothing worked. Weeks turned into months. Alexander was more exhausted than ever. And worst of all, he had started spending money he didn't have on courses that delivered nothing. Slowly, the old voices began returning. You're not smart enough. Other people can do this. But you can't. You should just accept your life. One night, he sat in the kitchen staring at his laptop in frustration when Sarah, still recovering from her injury, quietly sat beside him. She watched him scrolling through another course page. "Alex," she said softly, "you're trying to skip steps." He looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "You're trying to change your life instantly," she said, "but you're not actually learning anything." Alexander frowned. "I'm watching everything," he said. "I'm studying." "No," she replied gently. "You're consuming information, but transformation doesn't work like that." Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended, because deep down he knew she was right. He had been searching for shortcuts. That same night, while scrolling through another endless feed of promises and productivity hacks, something unusual appeared on his screen. A video with a simple title, "Shoshin, why did you stop learning?" The video didn't look flashy. There was no shouting, no promises of fast money, no dramatic music, just a calm voice telling a story. Alexander almost skipped it, but something about it made him click. 15 minutes later, everything he believed about learning had been shattered. The speaker began by quoting a Zen master named Shunryu Suzuki. "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities," he said. "In the expert's mind, there are few." Alexander paused the video. He replayed the sentence again. Something about it hit him like a sudden realization. The speaker continued. "The biggest problem adults face isn't a lack of intelligence," he explained. "It's an excess of certainty. You believe you already know your limits. You believe you know what you can and cannot learn. You believe you understand how the world works. And those beliefs become invisible prisons." Alexander felt as if someone had turned on a light in a room that had been dark for years. The speaker explained that the Japanese called this mindset Shoshin, the beginner's mind. It means approaching any skill or challenge with openness, curiosity, and humility, even if you've tried before, without assumptions, without ego, without the fear of looking foolish. Children naturally think this way. They experiment, they fail, they laugh at mistakes, and they try again. Adults do the opposite. They decide in advance whether they are capable, and once that decision is made, their mind closes. The video gave a simple example. An adult enters a language class thinking, "I've tried learning Spanish before, I'm terrible at languages." Before the first lesson even begins, the outcome is already decided. Every mistake confirms their belief. Within weeks, they quit. A child enters the same class with no such beliefs. They don't wonder if they are talented. They simply try. They make mistakes constantly. And 6 months later, they're speaking the language. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is mindset. Then the speaker asked a question that froze Alexander in place. "How many things could you have learned if you had not decided you were incapable before even trying?" Alexander paused the video again, because suddenly he realized something uncomfortable. He had never really tried to learn anything. He had collected information, but every time he attempted something new, he already expected failure. He wasn't learning with curiosity. He was testing his own limitations. And that is when the video introduced 2 more concepts that completed the puzzle. The first was Shuhari, the natural path of mastery. First you follow the rules, then you adapt them. Finally, you transcend them. And the second concept was do, the path. You are not learning to reach a final destination. You are learning because growth itself is the journey. There is no finish line, no final mastery, only the endless path. Alexander leaned back in his chair. For the first time in months, something felt different. Not excitement, not hype, but clarity. And that night he made a decision. Instead of chasing shortcuts, he would begin walking the path. The next day, Alexander did something different. For the first time in months, he didn't search for another shortcut. He didn't look for a miracle strategy or a course promising overnight success. Instead, he returned to the ideas he had heard in that video. Shoshin, Shuhari, the path. If the secret was to start with the mind of a beginner, then that meant doing something most adults hate doing. Starting small, that evening Alexander wrote 3 words on a sheet of paper. Body, mind, money. 3 areas of life he wanted to transform, but this time he wasn't going to reinvent everything. According to the concept of Shuhari, mastery begins with the first stage. Shu, follow the rules exactly, so he made a simple decision. He would copy people who already knew what they were doing. No ego, no improvisation, just learning. For his body, Alexander admitted something he had ignored for years. He had no idea how to train properly. So instead of trying random workouts from the internet, he went to a nearby gym and asked a personal trainer for a basic strength program. 3 sessions per week, simple exercises, nothing fancy, and he followed the plan exactly. For his mind, he returned to his dream of studying engineering. But instead of jumping straight into complex subjects, he started with something humbling. High school physics, yes, material designed for teenagers, and yes, he was 32. But this time he approached it with Shoshin, the beginner's mind. No embarrassment, no pride, just curiosity. For money, he faced another uncomfortable truth. He had never learned how to manage his finances. So he bought a basic personal finance book and followed its system exactly. He tracked every dollar he spent, cut unnecessary expenses, and created a simple budget. 3 areas, 3 small systems, nothing revolutionary, but something important had changed. Alexander wasn't chasing results anymore, he was practicing the path. The first 30 days were incredibly frustrating. At the gym, his body looked exactly the same. Studying physics made him feel slow and stupid. And financially, he was still struggling. Nothing seemed to be working, but this time he remembered another Japanese concept his mentor had mentioned. Kaizen, continuous improvement, 1% better every day. The trick of Kaizen is that progress is almost invisible in the beginning. You don't feel it. You don't see it immediately. That's why most people quit. But Alexander kept going, week after week. 3 gym sessions, 1 hour of study each day, tracking every dollar, small actions repeated consistently. Around week 6, something interesting happened. Alexander was lifting weights at the gym when he suddenly noticed something. The same exercise that had felt difficult weeks earlier now felt easier. He checked the numbers. He was lifting 10 kilograms more than when he started. The change had happened so gradually that he hadn't even noticed. A few weeks later, while studying physics, a concept that had once seemed impossible suddenly made sense. His brain had quietly built the understanding step by step. And then something else happened. One evening, while reviewing his finances, Alexander realized that for the first time in years, there was money left at the end of the month, not a fortune, but enough to prove that progress was real. That was the moment Alexander truly understood Kaizen. Growth doesn't arrive like an explosion. It accumulates silently, 1% per day, invisible at first, unstoppable over time. 3 months after the accident that had shaken his life, Alexander felt like a different person. Stronger physically, more confident mentally, more stable financially. But the most important change was internal. For the first time, he believed something he had never believed before. Change was possible. One afternoon, while repairing an engine at the workshop, Alexander noticed something strange. The way he looked at machines had changed. Before, he simply replaced broken parts. Now, because of his studies, he understood the deeper mechanics behind what he was doing. Physics, pressure, motion, energy. Suddenly, the work he had been doing for years looked completely different. And that's when an idea appeared in his mind. What if he didn't just repair cars? What if he designed parts for them? The workshop where he worked focused only on basic repairs. But there was a growing market for custom parts for classic and performance cars. Alexander began researching during lunch breaks and late at night. This time he used Shoshin again. He asked questions in online forums, questions that many mechanics with 10 years of experience might feel embarrassed to ask. But Alexander had let go of ego. He was a beginner again, and people answered, they explained, they shared knowledge. Slowly he started designing simple custom engine parts and outsourced their manufacturing to a local metal workshop. His first batch was tiny, just 5 pieces. He posted them on an online forum for car enthusiasts. 2 weeks later, they were all sold. The profit was small, but the signal was powerful. He reinvested the money and produced 10 more parts, then 20, then 50. 6 months later, his side business was generating nearly as much income as his mechanic job. 1 year later, Alexander made the most frightening decision of his life. He quit the workshop and started his own company. Many people thought he was crazy. "You're throwing away stability," they told him. But Alexander understood something they didn't. He wasn't chasing a quick result. He was walking the path, and once someone truly commits to that path, growth becomes inevitable. 2 years after the day he failed to lift his wife from the kitchen floor, Alexander's life had transformed completely. His company was growing. He had employees, he had financial security, he had strength, and most importantly, he had become something rare, a lifelong learner. When a young employee once asked him how he managed to change his life so dramatically, Alexander simply smiled. "It wasn't age that was holding me back," he said. It was my certainty about my limits." Then he explained the same secret that had changed everything. Shoshin, the beginner's mind. Shuhari, follow, adapt, transcend. Kaizen, 1% better every day, do. The endless path. And once you accept that path, something extraordinary happens. You stop asking whether it's too late to learn, because you realize something powerful. A beginner's mind has no limits, only infinite possibilities.